Alrighty, guys, we're gonna go straight into round three. Every game has gone into time so far, but that's just a consequence of players, getting used to all the new interactions between all the cards. The mirror match for that Amber Steel deck, obviously being very meticulous in terms of the math behind it. So just a lot of back and forth action in the first two rounds. We've seen control, we've seen like sort of aggro combo decks. What will we see? I want to see a rogue deck, some sort of rogue strategy, or just not very familiar, tier one established strategy like the last few that we've seen so far. So definitely that would be something exciting to see. And then we do start that train off quite well with green purple versus green blue. So we get to see green for the first time on camera on both sides of the table, and this is quite fantastic as both of them are unorthodox sort of combinations for these colors. So green, obviously an incredibly powerful and aggressive color, very versatile in some ways as well. And the color pair that we get to see for both these players a little bit different. So one opting for blue, the right side card selection, a little bit of additional removal and bomb threats. So definitely something that green desires. But on the other side, it's green with card advantage accompanied by purple. There could be a lot of incidental synergies in the purple color, just controlling the field with bounce effects while at the same time bouncing cards with the green songs as well. So a lot of board control on the left side of the table. Hopefully they get to do effects like that. And then just a lot of tempo advantage. And we get to see one of those first bounce spells in the rebuttal. So rebuttal plus tapping the Flint Rider in order to gain 2 lore. An incredibly good tempo oriented start from the side of the green purple player. And from the other side, this Flounder going to put in a lot of work against these two Flint Riders. If, for example, this Flounder had not been played on turn one, actually bouncing this 2-drop would have meant that these Flint Riders would have completely taken over the game. So incredibly instrumental. He went ahead and played that on turn one, and now gets to pay for the tax on Flint Rider. Flint Rider forcing the opponent to actually discard a card in order to attack into it. And then we do get to see another 2-2 in place. So incredibly efficient threats from the side of the green blue player. And I think that that is one of the better combinations. No card advantage, but just pound for pound, some of the best cards you'll see for questing. So that color combination makes a lot of sense from the right sided player. And now the left sided player playing one of their potential bombs in the Mad Hatter down as ink, but at the same time tempoing out with this Maleficent to draw an extra card. So we do get to see the card draw effectiveness of green. Green again, Mad Hatter, as mentioned previously, one of the only cards that can draw in the color, accentuated very well by the purple. So both these decks, relatively rogue decks, maybe considered tier 2 in some ways. In the green purple side, definitely some tier 2 strategy. On the other side, green blue, just fully a rogue strategy. But overall, just awesome to see this transition. And these players, obviously, 2-0 so far, so masters of the green color. And we'll see which splash in particular grabs some great advantage. So I would say just off the bat, with limited information, the purple player is advantaged closer to the late game as he has, like we mentioned before, a lot more card draw. Oh, we do get to see the shift tempo play into this princess and questing or 3. It seems that he did not want to pay the tax on Flint Rider, so now he goes ahead and just quests and lets Flint Rider stand tall to quest yet again. Flint Rider again, the tax on that card, not anything to scoff at. It is quite powerful. And what is this 5? One of the very powerful 5 drops in the green color about to be presented here, and he just has to choose which one in particular he would prefer playing, and Mad Hatter is the choice. And bouncing, so okay, the interaction here being when you go ahead and Mother Knows Best a card that has been shifted onto, you actually get both copies back to your hand. So A little bit of a refuel from the side of the green-blue player, but again, not the good kind of refuel as he loses a lot of tempo advantage on the table. Does have a lot more cards to pitch to that Flynn Rider, so might be interested in getting rid of it on this turn, but again, now it's his turn to show one of those incredibly powerful 5-drop cards, and it would be quite interesting if it was, again, a Mad Hatter from both sides. Mad Hatter, again, proving to be the only card draw typically seen in just a mono-green strategy, so being played presumably at high numbers for both players, as you can ink it, as we saw the left-sided player do, and at the same time cast it for additional cards, so fantastic play all around. And we do get to see the trade of that 2-drop that was put into play from the bounce spell and then discarded for the Flint Rider. So a lot of very good back and forth in terms of resources. But again, if you do get into that resource grind game, purple, very advantaged. And now we get to see not the most preferred 3-drop. You know, something like Cheshire Cat, typically a lot more preferred, but being able to cut off your opponent's ability to quest does Jasper. So Jasper, nice option here in the green mirror match in particular. So do like to see that. Oh, and Stinging Let It Go with the Mad Hatter to ink the Mad Hatter on the other side. This is actually incredibly powerful because with both players at low resources, these 5-drop haymakers, so a great tempo play here, putting Mad Hatter sideways, knowing that Mad Hatter, if it wants to get dealt with, it would have to draw extra cards, and that would be quite detrimental for the purple player right now. So singing with it, don't have to gain that 3 quest right now. Just deciding, okay, I'm going to out-tempo this Aurora into play and use Mad Hatter to sing. So turns out that Mad Hatter is a phenomenal singer, as phenomenal as his hairline suggests. So we do get to see Cusco. Oh, okay. So fantastic top deck from left-sided player. If you don't get card advantage, you just get haymakers. It's one of the main reasons why purple green is such a great color combination. So we'll get to see if he continues the top deck. Right? And now we are well and truly in a racing situation as, again, Jasper being able to stunt the development of this Mad Hatter. Will the Mad Hatter again be able to sing something, or will he actually go into combat and deal with one of these, presumably the Maleficent on the other side? Not being able to deal with this Cusco effectively, this Cusco cannot be allowed to tap for questing power more than once. So how does the blue-green player deal precisely with this sort of loss of tempo? I mean, he did get his main shift card bounced earlier, and that seemed to put him just far enough behind. Oh, and we do see Cheshire Cat stuck in his hand. That card, even if played in the particular situation, does not fare well into the sort of board that has been presented to him from the other side because, again, Cheshire Cat, fantastic at questing. It does not do anything offensively, so let's see if he actually uses it to ink and then prioritizing finding some sort of an out to the board at hand right now, and he actually does not swing into the Jasper, so that is must actually swing with the Mad Hatter this turn again because of Jasper. So finding another 5-drop would be very instrumental here. Looks at the top 2 cards of the deck, picks one, puts one at the bottom. It would be ideal if he goes ahead and inks Cheshire Cat and then plays the very powerful Mad Hatter or the very powerful Cusco. Get to see what he opts to do. And Mad Hatter, again, Mad Hatter, pretty good choice. Oh, and actually, it might be a consequence of the Jasper might not have been able to actually target the Mad Hatter on the other side because of Aurora. So Aurora actually functioning as this sort of fending off any detrimental effects from the other side. So fantastic synergy. And again, this like rogue deck synergy that we have going on here between these two very powerful 5-drops, not being able to target any card on the table from the side of the green-blue players. So these Mad Hatters actually have to be dealt with through combat only. And what a fantastic synergy. Being able to race in a situation like this and mitigating the Jasper effect. So fantastic from the green blue side and committing another 3 quest threat onto the table. And now is this Cusco going to turn sideways here? Presumably at this point, one has to cash in as much questing power as possible. But will he fall too far behind if he chooses to let his Cusco get traded into on the following turn? And if so, how does the blue-green player decide to trade into Cusco? I mean, so many different lines of play available. Going ahead and bouncing Aurora. Aurora protecting other cards on the table, not herself. Then going ahead and cashing in the Cusco on this turn. So deciding, okay, can't deal with both Jasper and Cusco. So I'm going to turn Cusco sideways. Go ahead and gain the 3, and then force one of your Mad Hatters to be destroyed into it. Again, just these tempo threats from the side of the green-purple deck. Just showing that again, if he does something like cascades a Friends from the Other Side into a Maleficent, giving him a few extra tools for card advantage, maybe extra ink, could prove quite beneficial. Alternatively, just again, top decking a Haymaker would be fantastic too. Putting both Hatters sideways, declaring, feeding the Cusco again. Cusco too far ahead in the scenario to be allowed to thrive and be activated twice. Again, Aurora surprisingly played as Ink in a sort of top deck situation, prioritizing the tempoing out of the Flynn Rider more important than just waiting a turn for Aurora. And I do agree with this line of play as a consequence of being a little bit far behind. And this is a Haymaker all of her own in Tinkerbell. So Tinkerbell is going to go ahead and be an evasive threat in this sort of mirror match situation where neither player presumably has outs to that Tinkerbell other than Tinkerbell herself. So fantastic top deck here from the left-sided player. And it's exactly what he needed in order to be able to convert this into a full victory. Just 2 quests away. So this Tinkerbell has to be bounced or has to be answered in some way. And she cannot. And that is it. So again, phenomenal synergies from the right-sided player, but just not enough interaction to deal with the out-tempo sort of play a bomb plus bounce your dude. And again, we go back to bouncing Aurora back to hand after it had been shifted into, just giving enough space to all these 3 quest threads to be able to eke out the victory from there. So phenomenal all around from the side of the green purple player. And as of right now, the synergies with the counter opposing color. So honestly, some of the green cards have been instrumental in the matchup, but for the most part, splashes have been minimal and interfering like with what either player wants to do. Again, the uh, blue princess being able to stop any card from being bounced other than herself almost made a difference, but was not enough. The aura was just barely not enough in order to make a difference. So we'll see if the blue splash or the purple splash ends up mattering over the course of the matchup, but for the most part being relatively overshadowed by the green cards in both players' decks, which have just been instrumental. And these decks are very much dominantly green with a splash of their preferred color. So just to assist green color again, just being one of the more well-rounded and fulfilled colors, but again, having that lack of card advantage is one of the main detriments to why people opt for something like a whole new world decks or the red-purple strategies that are being used. But again, these players said, nope, I want to be the aggressor in any matchup that I go to, so I am going to play the green colors, and it's working out for them so far. A lot of mulliganing. Definitely aggressive strategies need to find very particular cards in a curve and then try to out-tempo the other player in the sort of a racing situation, so want to sculpt as good of a hand as possible given the mulligan system. Again, the mulligan system very favorable in a game like this. Lorcana obviously being heavily detrimental if you draw too many uninkables in the opening hand, and you need to play a lot of those uninkable cards in order to use them for their powerful effects. So definitely giving you a lenient mulligan, being able to throw back your entire hand to the bottom and draw that same amount of cards with no penalty just mitigates a lot of non-games that could otherwise happen. So do like to see players taking full advantage of that, mulliganing to their heart's content in order to find appropriate curve. And we did see in game one that Flounder quite instrumental in not getting swarmed in the early game, but it was just not nearly enough. And a little bit, would like to see that befuddle typically used in combination with cards that are already in play to sort of quest and then stop your quested cards from being attacked into. In this particular case, it just used on turn one to not waste the ink, which is very much understandable from the side of the green purple player. Probably wants to tap out during the course of the entire game and doesn't want to miss the opportunity to deal with that flounder when he has the window to do so. So it's definitely worked out so far. And then obviously the green blue player counter punching using that flounder that already took a card from the opponent as ink. So all around, technically kept in hand, but presumably will be used as ink later on. So then now getting to untap with 3 ink is going to be our player on the draw. Again, very powerful to have access to the most ink at any particular point in time. But having won the first game, one typically has to go second for the following game. So just trying to see how he can go ahead and stabilize this situation. Try not to let this Flynn Rider take over the game. Does not have a very functional way of dealing with Flynn Rider right now, but hopefully after inking this Maleficent, it's already the second Maleficent ink in this way. And Jasper decent in game one at dealing with this sort of race that happened between both players, and now being used for the 2-4 stat line, and very powerful stat line that it is. We get to see the splash into blue, some of the preferred cards. Again, the power of green is having 3 quest cards, and we get to see that when paired with blue, we get to add that 3 quest Maleficent for 5. Just another incredibly powerful 5-drop. So a lot of synergy in the 5-drop slot between the cards in blue, and I wonder if that's in a way its own detriment as they share part of the curve. And just to describe what the curve is to you guys, it's basically the cost of a card. You know, how many cards share that same cost. For example, the 5-drop slot. So 5-drop, you want to be playing those Mad Hatters, you want to be playing those Cuscos. If you play those on turn 5, do you really have enough time or enough tempo to be using something like 5-drop Maleficent as well? So a lot of 5-drops in the green blue side. And let's see if he can leverage all of those during the course of the game to his advantage. On the other side, a lot more balanced curve. A lot of the cards in purple that are heavily used are 3 cost. So using those purple cards in the early game to draw extra cards and then slamming down, like we mentioned, the Mad Hatter and the Cusco's later portions of the game. So a little bit more synergy being shown in the green purple deck of choice for the left-sided player. Just it's a great combination of colors there, and definitely showing off its tier 2 status as an established deck. But this rogue deck from the right-sided player side, definitely nothing to scoff at, as he is significantly ahead in this game in particular, as his early game did not go as poorly as the first time, did not get his 5 cost bounced by Mother Knows Best. Here, getting Jasper to deal with Flynn Rider and also discarding Genie, so that Genie nowhere near close to casting Genie over the course of this game, so decides to get rid of it instead. And just dealing with the board again. In green mirror matches, this is functionally a green mirror match with a splash on both sides. you want to control the field, and if you control the field, you can control how much quest each player has. You can control the flow of the game and how quickly or how slowly the game is to end. And essentially, one player will be deemed the aggressor, and one player will be deemed the defender. In this case, the green-blue player has opted to have less card advantage in his deck, and because he has less cards to work with over the course of the game, he wants to end the game as quick as possible with the resources allotted to him. So he wants to take that into consideration moving forward. Right now, Aurora going to most likely deal with this Flynn Red and just very heavy tax right now, deciding if getting rid of something like a Jasper would be ideal, if getting rid of some other resource would be ideal, and getting rid of so putting Jasper as the 5th ink. Neither player probably wants to go past 5 ink, if not to 6 ink, would be quite ideal. And then using this shifting mechanic in order to deal fully with the Jasper and play pretty good sequence. But again, is he going to get Mother Nose bested again? And if he does, can he recuperate from it? He is ahead enough, or at least at parity enough, to where a Mother Nose best wouldn't matter. But either way, Hans comes into play. Hans being a fantastic, what we call efficient quester, in the sense that he only costs 4 instead of the typical 5 in order to quest for 3. So just an incredibly efficient card, and so efficient it is, in fact, that Aurora actually gets to sing Elsa's favorite song and throws Hans down to the inkwell, letting it go, proving to be one of the most instrumental reasons to be in the blue color, and a very good reason. Adding removal to the green color, just quite fantastic overall. So, and both players showing off their splashes, friends on the other side, in order to get a little bit more of a card advantage on the left side. Seeing more cards is having more options, and having more options is typically very good in card games. But is he too far behind to be able to convert those cards into meaningful value? We're going to find out. He is facing two powerful 5-drops from the other side, and his Flint Rider, even though it has quested a couple of times so far, might not get enough value to be meaningful. And okay, so he opts for the Jasper. He has identified the Jasper stopping Mad Hatter, hopefully being able to stop Mad Hatter. Again, this Aurora protecting it from any sort of effects. Aurora, Mad Hatter, just such a good gridlock type synergy between the two cards. And you get to see a top deck Cusco, so fantastic. I mean, if you have 5 ink, Cusco just phenomenal top deck every single time. Wouldn't want it any other way. Does he slam it on the table, or does he opt to do a different line of play? He does have, again, that 3 questing power Maleficent that we mentioned earlier. Presumably just throw Cusco out there. He's in a situation where he's winning in the race, and he can probably do no wrong. So just throw whatever threat you want out there. Should be good enough. So, and I do presume that if all else stays equal, the green-blue player will be able to strike back again the victory in this game. And it does seem like he got his cards bounced like they were in game 1, but however, this time around, he did not put that much priority into creating something like an Aurora Tower and having that get bounced. He instead went a little bit wider, understood that he wants to draw out the bounce effects from the opponent and then play his haymakers. So playing the matchup differently in round 2, game 2 of this match, and it's working out for him quite well. Tools that he has had access to so far have been much better for him. And on the other side, not using Jasper to sing friends on the other side, presumably because he wants to use Jasper on this Aurora, at least right now. Megara, actually. So, okay, so Megara, one of my favorite cards in the game. very powerful in these sort of board control scenarios where you need to deal with specific threats. Being able to have Megara give Flynn Rider 3 attack power so that it can go ahead and deal with Aurora, and then because Aurora is no longer in play, you can go ahead and Jasper the Mad Hatter. So an incredibly good combination of 1-2 punches there from the side of green purple. Having access to those extra cards due to the friends on the other side is proving quite powerful. He has all the ink in the world to be able to use his cards. He just needs to have a good sequence of top decks. Top decking something like a 5-drop or a 6-drop over the next couple of turns would be very good, but just again seeing all these smaller cards, which are working for him quite well. I mean, the Megara is putting in quite a lot of work, but he does want to see one of those haymakers very soon. The game being at parity doesn't feel like the game has gotten away from either player, and this Jasper is working triple overtime and making sure that this Mad Hatter is as inefficient as possible. But again, so many 3 quest threats from the side of green blue with the addition of this Maleficent that will it be enough to only have 1 Jasper? And okay, so now both players have Jasper, and in a scenario where both players have Jasper, the person who gets to quest for 3 first is typically the one who's winning, and again, just having Cusco here. And it's interesting, was it most optimal to actually target. Both of them are attacking, actually, so this is good. So both of them have to attack as a consequence of Jasper just simply being in play. Jasper gets the maximum value of dealing 2 to each of the characters, and neither of the 3 questing cards actually went in for 3 lore. So fantastic value from the Jasper, but again, nothing like a grab your swords in these colors to be able to capitalize on the chip damage from both cards. But again, Megara hold triple overtime with this giving 2 attacks to Flynn Rider last turn into dealing fully with this Cusco. So fantastic trades all around from our green purple side, but he's again just completely running out of steam, and we're going to see Mad Hatter take full control of this game with Flynn Rider beside him. You can see no more messing around. It's just going to be questing for 6, going up to the 16 quest mark. Lower counter spotted, lower counter placed on 16. And barring any sort of miracle, the match is going to be tied in a 1-1. And again, these two decks are very much aggro decks, but it does become this sort of mid-rangey value war between the two of them as a consequence of both of them are trying to fight very heavily for board control. So very nice matchup overall. Concession from one side and not able to establish that sort of bouncy house effect that the green purple deck is known to be able to do. And green blue again using Aurora to the maximum of its ability. That game definitely mattering. Aurora had to be dealt with before any Mad Hatter or Cusco could be dealt with. And very good all around. So in game 3 again, green purple better as the game goes forward, but you saw in those scenarios it was more difficult to find haymakers from the top of the deck because the density of haymakers is just a little bit smaller in the green purple side of the deck. The green purple deck opts to play a little bit more value centric, a little bit smaller threats, and just showing green blue haymaker after haymaker after haymaker. You don't need source of card advantage if every single top deck is just the bomb. So going to see game 3 here. First game 3 of the day. These players obviously very prowessed with their green strategies. They like the aggro decks. They like being able to have the games go short. Maybe they can get a little bit of lunch right after. But this makes them able to go into something like a game 3 here and have more agency over how they play their games. So the opener is going to be incredibly important for both of these players. Oh, just giving a little bit of an extensive shuffle, but that's okay. Just making sure everything is as randomized as possibly can be. And we're gonna see the mulligans again. Hard mulliganing on both sides. Appreciated as they need very specific cards. And from the left-sided player, I want to see specifically. We've seen it 2 games in a row. I do want to see it in game 3 again. Rebuttal, very powerful at stopping something like a Flounder from stunting your entire early game. Flounder incredibly good against these Flynn Riders. So I'd like to see something like that come through. And of course, 5-drop threats from the side of green blue. So no, Mother knows best spotted on the green blue side, and he might not be leaning in toward that sort of bounce board control centric. Deciding instead to use something like Jasper and just and then tell the opponent to control the board, and I will quest all day long. And it is a consequence of having so many 3 quest threats that he just decides, okay, you can't really remove my cards very efficiently because of Aurora, and all my cards say quest 3, so fantastic overall. Last couple of shuffles, cuts, making sure everything is random and fair. And we're going to get things started. And being the person on the play is incredibly pivotal in these aggressive strategies, but especially in green purple, because the green purple player most certainly wants to leverage something like Pascal into another Pascal plus rebuttal. I mean, that would be incredibly powerful. The evasive Tinkerbell in game 1 closing out the game. So evasive Pascal. Let's see how much mileage this Pascal can get. And what Thinkable is coming down. Oh, so the aforementioned Tinkerbell. Ooh, something like Megara. So Megara not being played for value in this case, just being played as a 1 quest threat. Very reasonable in a situation where she's a 2/1, gonna be able to favorably trade with mostly anything from the other side, but there is nothing like a rebuttal into destroying Pascal from the right-sided player as he is leaning more toward blue. Blue removal is obviously very expensive. Thinking Aurora here in order to play Flynn Rider. So interestingly enough, is the discard effect from Flynn Rider more important than the second attack power for Aurora? And our player on the right has decided that yes, Flynn Rider's value is more important, which is perfectly fine. And Jasper. Jasper just, again, every single time I see Jasper in play in a green mirror, Jasper is just the most influential card on the table by a significant margin. And it might not seem like a lot as it's only chip damage. This Pascal, I wouldn't be surprised if Pascal is just on his own going to get upwards of 6 lore. I'm calling it now. He's just going to lore for at least 6. Like, he's questing every single turn. It's going to be a proactive game save. So until something breaks the parity, Pascal's going to go completely uncontested. And we've seen evasive threats when both players are playing a bunch of low to the ground green cards. Maybe this purple splash, not only with the card advantage, but also with the card selection options, leaning toward that sort of evasive packaging. We do see actually Tinkerbell being inked. So with that telegraph that there's another anti-Pascal option, the right-sided player's hand, or did he actually place down his only Tinkerbell as a sort of way of saying, okay, I have an answer to Pascal, don't use it anymore? Will that deter the left-sided player from tapping Pascal for his questing power of 1? I'm not sure. And that would be really next level if you show your opponent in the ink a card that could answer the card in play, saying, oh, I have another copy of this card. And then actually not having another copy of it and just saying, okay, I'm going to nullify the effectiveness. But no, the player on the left does not fall for the bait and then says, okay, if you have a way to deal with my Pascal, I'll go ahead and let you do that just fine. And this race is 3-5 right now, and it does seem like Jasper is about to claim so much value here, stopping one of the Flynn Riders from going off, and at the same time not being able to be traded into. I mean, you could lose your whole board trading into it, but that is definitely not beneficial. As per inked, consequence of just too many power cards available on the right-sided player's side. So right now, Jasper's not the card that he wants to keep, but he should go ahead and go questing for 3, not being able to again quest with that Flynn Rider because of Jasper. And now, do we choose to attack with Jaspers and control the field a little bit? It does feel like there are not enough cards to be discarded to these Flynn Riders so far. So the Hans and the Flynn Rider unable to quest. Purple green player saying, okay, you're the one who has to deal with my cards. I don't care about what you're doing. I have complete control of the game with these Jaspers. You trade into me whichever way you feel is requisite, but I am going to quest away. And one chip at a time. This Pascal's at 4, so we said that he was going to get 6 before the game ended. See if that's true, but right now the chip damage from the Pascals along with these Jaspers just proving excellent, and that's one of the main drawbacks from these sort of incredibly powerful 5-drops. Yes, they have great effects in Cusco and Mad Hatter, but they give up a little bit of attack stats because of that. They're not something like Cerberus that has 5-6 stat line body, so difficult to fight something like a 2-4. And we see here Jasper already claiming his first character card, but going down at the same time. Putting this chip damage on Hans is actually quite good because now this Hans is going to be felled without ever questing, which will be quite good. And after the dust is settled, a lot of trading going to happen back and forth, but again, the card advantage aspect of the green-purple player might just get him through the finish line. Actually, his hand, he probably wants as many resources as possible, and this tax on Flynn Rider is just proving so annoying. Rider again, 1-2, very easy to be attacked into, but sometimes you just want every card in your hand, and you cannot deal with Flynn Rider at the particular moment unless you just discard a really powerful card. So Megara not being able to get any value on this. I caught a glimpse of a Megara in the left side player's hand, but nothing larger to be dealt with so far. So instead opting to use Maleficent in order to try to see another option. And Pascal. So Pascal ended up going down with 4 lore. Good enough. 4 lore and then traded into a Hans. Pascal's a good boy. He did a good job. How much into the tempo is the green purple going to lean into? He was debating inking one of his cards and then playing a Megara for no value. Seeing as he's already at 11, that didn't seem like the most unreasonable play, especially considering the fact that this Jasper is still locking things mostly down. He opts not to do that. Hopefully, it will pan out for him as the right play. He's gaining 4 incredibly good, and singing with that, not necessarily using it to quest because he wanted to let it go. One of the more efficient ways to use let it go. Again, with Mad Hatter, fantastic singer, let it go. And we're going to see for lore, he was at 8. He will go up to 12. Players debating. Up to 12. And then once the game state is sorted out, yes, definitely was at 8, 1 to 12 with both Flynn Riders. Now these Flynn Riders, something tells me they have to be attacked into at some point. It just doesn't matter anymore. If your hand gets discarded, they have gained way too much value. But then, Mad Hatter, uncontested on the table. Alternatively, the Megara can be used in combination with this Tinkerbell in order to deal with Mad Hatter without losing the Tinkerbell, which could also be very powerful. We're gonna get to see, will this rogue strategy, this completely different take on the green strategy and counter format take on the game, will it be able to go 3-0 in our 1K tournament? I mean, the highest level of play here in the Pro Play Games 1K is a rogue strategy going to go 3-0. It's looking very likely from how the game has played out so far, and that would just be such an amazing moment for this player to bring something that he crafted all his own and have it become one of the undefeated decks on the floor. That would be quite fantastic for him. Just goes to show a lot of practice goes into for these players on Pixelborn, on other live events over the course of our local tournament scene. So practice definitely converting into prowess here for the green blue player, but again, in purple, not out of it yet. Racing just fine at 11. Most certainly will go up a couple of questing points this turn, and will it be enough? So much value from this Florida. This Florida probably gained 8 or 10 points at this, and it's just a consequence of not choosing to deal with it earlier on. I mean, sometimes you just have to bite the bullet, discard a power card to the Flynn Rider, or else the Flynn Rider is going to take over the game by himself. The green purple player did not have the sort of leeway to be able to feed cards into the Flynn Riders in the early game. The Flynn Riders proved their immense power in being able to quest for 2 every single turn, and now we find ourselves in this situation. 15 lore, only 5 away. Cat questing for 2, proving that that's all that Cat can really do, is quest for 2 lore. Good, but will it be good enough in this scenario? To be determined. Tinkerbell most likely going to go ahead and discard the last card in his hand, which is Mad Hatter, an incredibly powerful card, but must be done. You do what you gotta do, and then top deck a 5-drop Haymaker right here to close out the game with questing for 2 or questing for 3. Almost his entire deck quests for 2 and 3. What did he find? A cat. Okay. Actually opted to trade with the Tinkerbell. So Tinkerbell being alive means that Cusco will not be able to quest. It'll actually have to trade. Oh, and Tinkerbell actually elusive. So unless a Tinkerbell is top decked from the side of the green purple player, green blue will go 3-0 on the first 3 rounds of our tournament. Such an incredible moment. Did he top deck an answer for it? And even if he did, can he deal with this Flounder and Cheshire Cat? What is this last card in hand? He is deliberating, so it must be something that can impact the field. And no, and he's decided to just pack it up. And fantastic run from the green blue player, going 3-0 in the tournament so far, and hopefully we'll see him succeeding further in the tournament with his own home brew and just phenomenal sort of prowess over the green matchup. And any takeaway from there is definitely just Jasper. Fantastic card in green. The splash is very minimal there in those matchups. Obviously Aurora from one side, Friends on the other side from the other, but for the most part,